Welcome to the European Parliament, to its second session in October in Strasbourg. As usual, there is a group meeting. The Intergroup for Animal Welfare is meeting every Thursday here. This time the issue was how to have or not to have wild animals at circuses. I have invited three guests. To my left I have a lady coming from Britain even saying it's all right with showing wild animals at circuses. Why?
Well, I believe that people should have a choice. I agree with your other guests that we must stop people who abuse animals, the same as I would with people who abuse children. But I believe there is, the people have a right to choose. Millions of people across Europe have chosen to go and see animals in circuses. But I believe the whole thing can be solved the same as it is in Great Britain, with a licensing, strict licensing, and overnight all the abusers, all the people who actually don't treat their animals fairly, will go.
You said people should have the right to choose. Do the animals have such a right or not?
Yes, they do. They have a right, but the biggest thing that people do is say they wouldn't do this in the wild. No, they wouldn't do that in the wild. But they're not in the wild. They are totally dependent on their human caregivers. Maybe they shouldn't be there in the first place, but they are there. They love the excitement of the circus. They love being with the people. And to good animal circus people, they're their lives and their children's lives.
But I could have interrupted you asking the question, how do you know that the animals like the life at the circus? You haven't been an animal in circus yourself, have you?
No, I have not been an animal in circus. However, if you're an animal behaviourist, and I'm a zoologist actually, I read zoology, and I've worked with animals for 50 years. I've never worked in the circus, but you began to read their livelihood. If you have a dog, you know when your dog's happy, you know when it's not, you know when it's fed up, you know when it's fed up being left on its own. It is exactly the same with domesticated wild animals, exactly. The good trainers can look in the morning, I can look at animals in the morning and say, I'm not going to work that one in the movie today because he's not very happy.
I know it's not fair that I have taken two ladies opposing your opinions, but welcome to you both.
Thank you.
You have stated from a legal point of view that it is not right to show wild animals in circus. How come a legal aspect into this picture?
Well, I think the legal aspect really follows on from the decision-making process, which looks at the welfare, the ethics, and the problems that people have identified with circuses over the year. The legal aspect of it is, in my view, the solution, so a full ban. That's what we would like to see across all of the EU member states, or even an umbrella motion by the EU to bring that into place. So the legal aspect really, for us, is the end game. That's what we want to see as a result of the animal welfare and ethical concerns with use of animals in this way.
You were agreeing to the fact there should be a ban. Why?
Yes, so we totally agree with the fact that we need a ban, because these are wild animals, and wild animals are not suited to perform in circuses. The circus environment cannot satisfy the minimal welfare requirement for these animals. And this is not something that we as NGOs for working for the welfare of animals said, but we collected the signature of eminent researcher, university professor, entomologist and veterinary, exactly saying that the circus environment is inappropriate for circus animals, for wild animals, because these are not domesticated animals. Even if they're born in captivity, even if they are in captivity since generation, they are still the behavior typical of their conspecific in the wild, and in no way the circus environment can satisfy their requirement for.
What's your background? background?
I'm an eco-ethologist.
Your background?
Practically a conservationist and working in animal welfare, and academically law, animal welfare law specifically.
There's a lot of talks about animal rights. How could you put that into practice?
Well, I think animal rights is really, it depends, it's another label effectively for animal ethics, and what it does is it looks at how we should treat animals based on moral arguments. So animal rights, I guess, can be stigmatized and it can be demonized in many ways, but really all it is, it's looking at different arguments, discussing how we should treat animals in relation to what we know about them, in relation to their sentience, in relation to perhaps their intelligence, in relation to the fact they can feel pain. So I think animal rights is a discussion almost, and it's something which should inform our decision making and inform, for example, legislation and regulations that we might bring in.
These arguments impressing you or not?
Yes, they're very impressive. They, you know, I agree with a lot of things that these ladies say, but I think the problem can be solved without a total ban. All of the things, I mean, these wild animals, these animals in circuses, they weren't taken from the wild. They're maybe 6th, 7th, 8th generation. All they've known all their lives, and incidentally, they are not dragged from their mothers. Most of them now, in good circuses, I'm talking about, good circuses, they have the parents, and the youngsters of the animals work with the parents in the circuses. They sleep together. The little ones are never worked until they're weaned and perhaps 18 months old. You know, there's all sorts of ways of looking at it. I totally agree. I don't agree with people who abuse animals. There are some circuses, if I could walk down the road and say, go, finish, I would. I would right be behind you. But I think it's not fair to just tar everybody with the same brush.
There's been a lot of accidents due to having the wild animals in circuses, even very severe accidents, especially when it came to elephants. Can that be accepted?
No.
So what to do about it?
Well, with our licensing regulations, it's written in. The circuses have to prove that they know exactly what they're doing with their reply or their action regarding an accident. We're fortunate, and for something I'm really pleased about is that we don't have elephants in circuses in the UK. I think there are some good circuses with elephants, especially in Germany. There's some good ones in France. But we're in a position, we only have 2 circuses licensed. And they comply with everything, and everything they do is done correctly. Otherwise, they'd go.
How can we make sure that the customers, that people who are visiting circuses, are knowing what they're going to see, what's the background of those animals they're going to witness can be?
We have to inform them, and in
fact,
but how? Through campaign of information of the public, and to disseminate images that explain clearly that these animals suffer in circuses, and being present like today to sensibilize members of the parliament, other politicians to do something.
By that you are saying that you need laws.
Sorry?
By that you are saying that you need law.
Yes. We need the support of public opinion, and we need the support of politicians, and politicians are always very sensible to the public opinion. So first we have to work with the public opinion, but public opinion is already in favor of a ban in most of the European countries. Where there has been a survey, they demonstrate that people is against the use of wild animals in circuses.
What kind of law would you like to have? Should it ban every kind of animals in circuses, including horses and dogs or whatever?
I think from a personal perspective, I would like to see that. But I think practically, certainly for example in the UK, then the discussion and the dialogue has always been focused on wild animals. I think from a legislative point of view, governments aren't nervous about even addressing the idea of banning domesticated animals at this stage, because it would have a knock-on effect to other industries, for example horse racing or the use of animals in other ways. So whilst from a personal perspective I would absolutely love to see that, from a practical perspective I think we should approach it in steps. I think we can talk about the lives of domesticated animals in circuses, and we can make those arguments, but I think right now we're priming for a ban on wild animals to then hopefully in my opinion, move forward in the future to see human-only circuses.
You shall have the last word.
Okay,
If I tell you that being a ringmaster in my young ages,
Goodness.
I had problems with accepting the conditions under which the animals were kept. I look in your eyes, you are a warm-hearted woman, no doubt about that.
Thank you.
Would you like to have it banned if possible, or are you fighting for the license under certain conditions?
I'm supporting the licensing regulations with tough conditions. I'm supporting.
Such as?
Like we have in England.
You have to explain where the difference from the rest lies when it comes to
the rest of the countries. I think we're the only one that's got it enshrined in main law. Other countries have what we had before. We had local, you had to be registered under the Performing Animals Regulations Act 1925, and I think that's the same in France and Germany. They have to be on the central register. And then there are local conditions they have to comply with. Ours is all done from central government. It's operated by central government, but it is paid for by the circuses. It costs the state nothing. Circuses have to have 7 inspections by vets every year, every single year. They have to write every single thing down and have it inspected as to what the animals have to do. If the animal comes from its tent to go into the field, because our circuses take a lot of hoof stock, so they're not on hard ground, they're out in the field. If they are taking from their nighttime tent to go out in the field, or left out in the field overnight, because a lot of the hoofed animals like to be left out, camels and things, and taking in, it has to be recorded in the book. And every time, these 7 vets, 3 are DEFRA appointed vets, the other 4 are DEFRA vets, but they're not circus licensing vets. Excuse me. Everything that's done to them, every time they eat or don't eat, every time they move, every bit of loading into the trucks, every journey they make is recorded. Where they stop on the way, who amongst the circus people is responsible for the health and safety of those animals during journey. Everything. The circuses have to take with them a big wagon with all this paperwork in it. They take it everywhere because they don't even know when the inspectors are coming. They just turn up. But the circuses have to pay their, by the hour, every single hour from when the vets leave home until they return to home. And everything that is done, circuses pay for. And this is another reason why the licensing is a good thing, because all the bad circuses won't want to pay a fortune every year to do that. They'll just say, well, get rid of them. Good, that's what I want. Bad circuses, get rid of them.
And that finished a discussion which could be carried on and on in the homes everywhere in Europe and should be have discussed. I hope you either disagree or agree at least to the fact animals should be treated as right as possible.